All right, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are having a phenomenal end of the weekend. We're here about to walk into Thanksgiving week, and it's been about a month since I've updated anybody on what I'm doing. I've been in and out of travel to and from Pennsylvania visiting family, and I'll be doing the same this following week, or this upcoming week, rather. But I wanted to remind everybody about 5 things that we always talk about on the channel. And that's with respect to, and this doesn't pertain specifically to equities. It doesn't pertain specifically to real estate. It doesn't pertain to anything specific to any particular investment. This is just for you to look at and think about on your own and contemplate. It's not something you're going to be able to answer right away. It's not going to be something that is impossible for you to answer. And it's okay for it to change over time. But we're going to talk about 5 things that we always talk about. And the first, which is the most paramount, obviously, which relates a lot to the remaining 4 items that we'll discuss in just a moment, is your objective. What are you doing all this for? Are you doing it to retire early? Are you doing it to help with monthly bills? Are you doing it for another reason, buy a house within a couple years? And the reason why understanding that is important is because it truly shapes the remaining 4 items, which we're going to talk about today. And this doesn't differ from anything that you get from JP Morgan or anything the like. It might just be more blunt and transparent. And, I think when I was initially investing, I shrugged a lot of that stuff off. I was like, you know what? The intro to investing, all that, it's not important. But in reality, after 9 to 10 years of investing, I've come full circle and realized that those are paramount to understand. So first and foremost, your objective as to why you're investing is probably the most prudent thing to understand. And this helps you understand the next 4 things I'm about to say. Second is time horizon. You're going to invest completely differently if you need the money tomorrow versus 20 years from now. Reason being is investments are inherently risky majority of the time. And with that, if you need the money tomorrow to feed yourself or to pay a bill or anything of the like, it doesn't necessarily go and make sense to throw all that money into real estate. It doesn't make sense for you to throw all that money in cryptocurrencies or anything of the like, right? So just acknowledge that. Whereas if you're 20 years down the road, it gives you a little bit more time and a length of time for your investments either to take on a little bit more risk or for you to deal with the ebbs and flows of whatever market you choose to get into. And that, of course, goes into number 3, which is risk tolerance. So obviously, risk tolerance, some people don't mind seeing a small retracement in their investments because they acknowledge that sometimes you have to lose a little bit, or sometimes the markets just ebb and flow. And with that, in the long term, 20, 30 years down the road, it can recover and do extremely well. What I think people don't recognize is risk management. If you pile risk on top of risk on top of risk, you're doubling down, you're tripling down on some of that risk. And I think inherently as human beings, we're optimistic. And so I think risk management is one where I truly want to help people understand, because I've dealt with it in my own investments where I've been like, okay, 3% risk here, 4% risk there. And in a market like we're seeing in 2022, those risks compile pretty quickly to be 20% of your portfolio gone in a matter of, let's just say, a couple months. And so risk management is something it's very key. Some people are retirees, right? Maybe they don't want to risk principal at all. And so they might be looking at cash, savings accounts, CDs, and that's okay as well. It all just matters upon what your objective is and what your time horizon is and your risk tolerance. Now, this last 2 kind of pertain a little bit more to people that are younger in their careers, but it's also important for a retiree or anybody of the like. And that is, how active or passive do you want to be in this investment? And the reason why that's important is because if you want to do hands-on real estate and you don't have any time, let's say you work 60 hours a week and you're out of state, it doesn't make sense for you to invest in a house that's out of state and you to manage the property 100% by yourself and say it's a fixer-upper, right? It doesn't make sense. It's a lot of time. And say you might have 15 to 20 minutes a day to dedicate to investing in the stock market. You can't be a day trader, right? You could be very lucky and get lucky only spending 10, 15 minutes a day. But a lot of times these day traders spend hours a day looking at charts prior to, sometimes the night before, sometimes before the market opens, in order to establish what they're going to do and plan out what they're going to do for the day. So if you have 15 minutes between meetings, it's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to many others of you, where you're trying to day trade and just gamble, you're more than likely going to lose that money. And so it's not necessarily depending, you kind of have to figure out what specifically you're aiming for, right? And what works for you. You might be able to do swing trading, right? At nighttime, you might have an hour or something like that to look and be like, okay, read the balance sheets and the cash flow statements and say, this looks relatively cheap from a value perspective right now. Let's get into it and spend, 6 to 12 months within the investment as it kind of returns back to favor. And that happens all the time. Hedge funds exit positions and reduce 5-6% positions in the stock. And if there's not enough buyers, the stock is inevitably going to go down in price, right? So it gives a good opportunity for somebody that wants to get in at a valuable position for their perspective. So just keep that in mind, right? If you have 5 minutes between meetings, it probably doesn't make sense for you to be a day trader, right? And if you have a lot of time in your hands, maybe it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to be strictly an investor either, right? And buy something and wait for 20 years for it to return if you're just sitting on your hands, right? So just kind of situate yourself for what kind of investments you want to make, or just, if you're not athletic, you're not going to be, let's just say, a football player, right? So just kind of set yourself up for the situation that you're kind of in. And then lastly, how aggressively you're going to contribute to the portfolio, right? So if you are somebody that only has $1,000 and you're only going to have that $1,000, and it's not likely that you'll be able to get more than $1,000 in the near term, then you're going to invest completely differently than if you're somebody like myself who tries to invest, 30% of their income on a monthly basis, right? It makes more sense for me to take on less risk, plan for over 20, 30 years, chip away slowly, than somebody that needs to turn 1,000 into 1,000,000 over the course of 20, 30 years, and that's the only 1,000 they have. Now, if you have 1,000 and you're going to get paid again and you're going to continue to save, the easiest way to have the amount of times you need to double your money is by saving another $1,000, right? The easiest way, going from 1,000 to 1,000,000, you basically have to 1,000x your money. The easiest way to have that is by adding another $1,000, and now you only have to 500x your money, right? So, that sort of mentality. And then if you do it a third time, you only have to 330. And you do it at a fourth time, you only have to 250x your money, right? So you can slowly chip away at it. Versus if you're trying to turn 1,000 into 1,000,000, it's going to be a very large uphill battle with a lot of diligence. And so, like I said, keep in mind these 5 things can ebb and flow over time. Your objective for one account might be different than another. Your time horizon may shift over time. You might have something come up that you might need to necessarily focus on beforehand. You might get laid off and you might come into some money because of the severance pay or something of the like, and you might have more free time in your hands. And so that could change as your portfolio matures. It could change, but it's something that you always kind of need to reflect on every couple of months and recognize where you are. My portfolio has changed very drastically. I used to think that I needed to be a dividend investor day in, day out. And what I've kind of recognized is, hey, I'm likely going to be working this job for quite some time. And while I do really well, I could potentially set myself up for dividends only and get $60,000, $70,000 a year in dividends. But at the end of the day, it's better for me in the long term to develop a long-term growth portfolio that has some balance and has some income associated with it. And that was just a maturation of my portfolio, as a maturation of my self-thinking, and really a laying back on the fundamentals. I used to try to chase a 6-7% dividend yield in the portfolio, and now it's down to probably around 3%. So it just goes to show, how much you can kind of think about the portfolio and set yourself up, and no right or way wrong. It's really just depending on what's right or wrong for you. And that's the last piece I'll leave you guys with, is obviously those 5 key things. But lastly, everyone else is battling with their 5 things that make their investment portfolio what's right for them. And so when then something comes out of their mouth, I urge you to listen. I urge you to understand what they're trying to tell you. But at the end of the day, I want you to internalize what they say. I want you to listen to what they say, and don't necessarily change your narrative, but think specifically about those 5 things that we just discussed, and understand what they said and how it could fit into your portfolio or not. It could be something where they say, Matt, like, real estate is the thing you need to do. It's like, well, it's going to be pretty difficult for me to do real estate when all I have is the weekends, right? I can't be running over there at, noon on a Tuesday to be able to fix something, right? So if I were to do real estate, I'd have to do it with a partner, or partner with a property manager or somebody like that to be able to ease that pain, right? So it's about understanding what works right for you. And there's going to be a lot of things that excite you, and that's great. That shows the passion and what you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, I just encourage you, a lot of people are going to have a lot of great ideas, and those ideas might work for them or not. They might be spouting something that at the end of the day doesn't work for them, right? Not everybody knows these 5 things that are going to be crucial for their investment future. So hopefully this helps, and hopefully the audio sounds a little bit better as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, and please let me know if there's anything you guys want me to chime in on. But it's been a minute since I talked, and I had an opportunity on a Twitter space to give that little soapbox discussion about those 5 key things. And I figured, hell, it's been probably 6-7 months since I've told you guys that alone. If you guys see some of the streams that I do, I push that pretty heavy, but there's been a few of you guys that have joined, and some people that have unsubscribed, and newcomers that have kind of offset some of those subscribe losses. So I figured, what hurts to remind people again? So thank you guys. As always, I appreciate you, and hopefully you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys in December time. So if I don't talk to you on a stream or something. So thank you. Talk to you soon. Cheers.